Hello, this is the Council on Independent Fundamental Bible Doctrine. I'm doing my next video in the Covenant Theology series titled Preaching to the Spirits in Prison. This is a passage that can be easily misunderstood. Basically, for one reason, people don't read far enough. You have to understand the chapter breaks and the verses were all added by a person later. They're not inspired. Okay? The chapter and verse break points are not inspired. So make sure you read further. Okay? The only thing inspired about the breaks would be when you go from one book to another. Okay? It's not the verses or the chapter breaks. Okay, those were added later to help people find things, reference them quickly, and such. So let's go ahead and look at this because it's very clear once you have a general understanding of a larger portion of that passage. Okay, let's look at the passage. Right, for Christ also hath once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometimes were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was a preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls, were saved by water. All right, this is the part that people just stop at, okay, instead of going on to chapter 4. For as much then as Christ hath suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind, for he that hath suffered in the flesh hath ceased from sin, that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lusts of men, but to the will of God. For the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles, when we walked in lasciviousness, lusts, excess of wine, revelings, banquetings, and abominable idolatries, wherein they think it strange that ye run not with them, to the same excess of rioting, speaking evil of you, who shall give account to him that is ready to judge the quick and the dead. For this cause was the gospel preached to them that are dead, that they might be judged according to men in the flesh, but live according to God in the Spirit. Okay, this is the reason it was preached unto the dead. Here's the thing. Okay, for this cause was, past tense, the gospel preached to them that are, present tense, dead. The dead is the present situation that those people find themselves when the author wrote this. When Peter wrote this, the people were dead. The people that are dead identify the people, them that are dead. The dead, them being in prison, dead, in hell, in prison, okay, that does not say when the preaching took place. That's identifying who the people are that the preaching was done to. Them that are dead. The preaching was, okay, past tense, was the gospel preached to them that are dead. The dead and the preaching was at 2 different times. Okay? See, why was the preaching done? that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lusts of men. People, you do not live the rest of your time after you're dead. Okay? The split point to these people's lives is when they heard the preaching. But the key thing is, it was while they were alive. Okay? No longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh. People, you can't be in the flesh if you've already died and you've gone on as a spirit. You're done with the flesh. You can't live the rest of your time. You can't live in the flesh after you're dead. All right? This was preached so that they would live to the will, by the will of God in the spirit. Okay? Instead of living the rest of their time in the flesh, doing fleshly things, walking in the flesh. Okay? For the time past of our life may have sufficed us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles. We may have lived like that before the past of our lives, but not that which of our life, the rest of our time. And the preaching came between the rest of their time and the past of their lives. May suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles. When we walked in lasciviousness, lust, all the works of the flesh, wherein they think it strange that ye not run with them. Okay, they're making a judgment in the flesh. Well, you guys are strange. For this cause was the gospel preached to them that are dead, was preached to them that are dead, that they might be judged according to men in the flesh. Okay, they're going to be judged according to men in the flesh, and some men are going to think it's strange. Okay? But live according to God in the Spirit. Do away with all the fleshly sin and live to the will of God. Okay, people, that's what this passage is referring to. Okay? He suffered for sins to bring us to God. Okay? Being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit. There again is that contradiction between the flesh and the Spirit. By which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison. Now understand, the preaching was done to those that are in prison, are dead. The in prison is identifying the spirits by saying this is the people who are dead. Okay, the preaching was not done when they were in hell. The preaching was done when they were alive. Okay, he went and preached, went, past tense, and preached unto the spirits in prison, current tense. Okay? That's what he's saying. Which sometime were disobedient. Okay, there's a semicolon. So all these list of things is going to revert back to this event. Okay? Okay, the spirits that are in prison, okay, which were sometimes disobedient. Okay? When once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah. So they were sometimes disobedient. The preaching occurred in the days of Noah, when the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. These are all descriptions of when he went and preached, and it's descriptive of the spirits that were in prison. Okay? but the gospel was preached to them that are dead. Okay? That's what he's saying. Okay? Christ did not go to hell to preach to people. Okay? All right? That's the situation that we have. All right? So let's go ahead and move on. So why did Jesus go to hell? Whom God hath raised up, having loosed the pains of death, because it was not possible that he should be holden to it. For David speaketh concerning him, because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. He, seeing this before, spake of the resurrection of Christ, that his soul was not left in hell, neither his flesh did see corruption. So it's very strong indication that Christ went to hell. Okay? And understand, it's not to preach to the souls that were in prison, but it's to endure the pain of hell. Okay? This is a little bit more of an indicator of that. Whom God hath raised up, having loosed the pains of death. Okay? Understand, in this life, death has no pain. In this life, death is a release. Once you die, you're at peace. In this life, people, there are no pains of death. The only reason you experience pain at your death is because you haven't died yet. Okay? Because it was not possible that he should be holden to it. Holden to what? Holden to the pains of death. How would death have any pain for him? And when was it loosed? It seems to indicate that it was loosed at the raising, which would have been 3 days later. Which would mean that he was in hell burning for 3 days, because that's how long the pains of death last. That's what this verse strongly insinuates. Okay? That's what's being said here. Because the first death is a release of pain. There is no pain of death in the first death. But as we're going to see, salvation is from the second death. Hell is the second death. That's where the pain of death occurs, because there is no pain in death in the first death, in the death of in this life. Okay, it's a release of pain. That's why everybody goes up and says he's now at peace. Okay, well, if he's in heaven, he's at peace. If he's in hell, he's probably in worse shape than he was when he was still alive and getting ready to die. Okay, raised up. So at the resurrection, 3 days later, the pains of death were loosed, because he could not be holden to it. Okay, they couldn't hold him to the pains of death. Okay, because he was resurrected. Okay, so 3 days later, okay, his soul was not left in hell. Okay, apparently his soul was in hell. Okay, for as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Oh, okay. So we see, this is a strong indication that he was in hell. Okay. Understand, if he just led captivity captive, like they like to say, oh, that's when he went down and, he wouldn't spend 3 days there. Okay. And he loosed the pains of death because he was not holding to it. Okay. as Christ also hath given himself for us a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling savor. Okay. When does the sacrifice, when does the sacrifice smell like it's going to taste good? Okay, smelling savor. Savor is when you cook it. Okay? People, Jesus did not go back up to heaven after 3 days. He spent over a month walking around the earth after his resurrection. He did not have all the New Testament or all the Old Testament saints with him. Okay? They weren't walking, hey, let me lead these thousands of people around while I, if not hundreds of thousands. Okay? While I'm going around seeing everybody, he didn't have this gigantic entourage. Okay? People, he did not ascend up to heaven. It was like 40 some days. Okay? He did not resurrect all the way to heaven. He resurrected and then spent a month on earth. More than a month. Okay? If my understanding is that it's more than a month. It's like 40 some days. Okay? When you do the calculations. I have not done the calculations myself, but I've seen evidence that it's a considerable amount of time. Okay? So he did not go down to hell and pick up the people and then take them to heaven. Because he didn't even go to heaven himself till like 40 some days later. But here's the thing. He is a sacrifice for a sweet smelling savor to God. Okay. And the other lamb thou shalt offer at evening for a sweet savor, an offering made by fire unto the Lord. Oh, the lamb's supposed to be burnt. And the fat of the lamb is taken away from the sacrifice of the peace offerings, and the priest shall burn them upon the altar, according to the offerings made by fire unto the Lord. And the priest shall make an atonement for his sin that he hath committed, and it shall be forgiven him. And the other lamb shalt thou offer at evening. Thou shalt offer it a sacrifice made by fire, a sweet savor unto the Lord. Okay, remember, the New Testament says, as Christ also hath given himself as a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling savor. Jesus is the Lamb. This is what was done to the Lamb. People, God pictures it over and over and over and over again and again and again. And this isn't even all of them, okay? For a meat offering unto one lamb, for a burnt offering of a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto the Lord. You cannot be a sweet smelling savor until you start cooking the meat. Okay? That's the picture God gave us of the Lamb and his payment for sin. Think of it like this. Okay? Think of it like this. Let's go down here and look at this first. The second death. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. Okay, here's the thing. Jesus paid the price that we had to pay. Okay, but understand, we still pay the first death. What we're saved from is the second death. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. Of such the second death hath no power. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. That is the second death. All right, so if you're going to say Jesus did not burn in hell for those 3 days, okay, then here's the thing. But we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, should taste death for every man. So he experienced the death that we are not saved from the first death, but didn't experience the death that we are actually saved from. Second death. But the fearful and unbelieving shall have their part in the lake of fire, which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. See, we're not saved from the first death. We're not saved from Christ's death on the cross. Well, in a sense we are. But we're really not, because that first death we have to experience as well. See, we still die. But we don't experience the second death of going to hell. So when you say Jesus did not burn in hell for those 3 days, okay, you're saying that Jesus took our punishment, took our death punishment, okay, in the avenue that he experienced our first death, but then stopped there and didn't experience the death that he actually saves us from. Because we still die the first death in this life. We just do not die the second death. And thereby, Christ is saving us from the death, the second death, that he himself did not experience for us, did not taste for us. All while the Bible, okay, is saying that he was a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. All while the Bible is saying that the lamb is to be burned for a sweet-smelling savor. Okay? Yeah, I mean, we're talking like high 90% that Jesus burned in hell. Okay? The Old Testament picture of the New Testament reality both show Jesus being burned in hell for our sins. Okay. How would he taste death for every man? And how would he say that he took our punishment, okay, if the one part of the punishment that he didn't take was the one part of the punishment that we are alleviated from? Okay, the second death. Okay, no, it's all good, and that's basically what Christ did while he was in prison. He was not preaching in prison. Okay, he was not preaching in prison, and here's the thing: it was in the day. It was to those in the days of Noah. So if he went and preached to the spirits that were actually in prison when the preaching took place, if he was preaching in hell, why did he segregate to only those that were alive in the days of Noah? Why didn't he preach to everybody? Okay, no. The preaching was done to those in the days of Noah, okay, because that's when the preaching occurred. Okay, it was while they were alive. Okay, it was while they were alive, so that they should no longer live the rest of their time in the flesh, because they were still in the flesh. They hadn't died yet. You can't live the rest of your time after you're dead. But that they live to the will of God instead of to the flesh. For the time past of our life, we used to walk like that. But the rest of his time, we will walk in the Spirit. For this cause was the gospel preached to them that are dead. Past tense was it preached to those that are dead when he's writing it. That's the understanding of the passage. Okay? All right. Thanks a lot. I hope this helps. All right, bye-bye.